Welcome, everybody, back to the Pause It For Me podcast. This is episode 51. Hannah, this is our second recording of the day. Has fatigue set in yet?
No, I'm ready to talk about movies all day, every day.
Well, that's perfect because we've got a brand new guest in store for the audience here today. Please welcome Virgo Velasquez.
Hey,
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me.
Round of applause. The crowd goes wild. So much in the same vein as Ben Bergeron that we had on twice now, I met Virgo Velasquez. Well, we met Virgo when you were part of a panel at Ottawa Comic Con with Ben and with Jesse Edwards and some other people.
Yeah.
And it took us a while to get connected, but I'm glad to finally have you here to talk about filmmaking.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, Hannah. Thanks for getting me to drop in. Yeah, I was the Comic Con with my co-creator, my creative business partner, Steven Simpasa. We worked together in Vancouver and BC. And Jesse asked us to jump on board with her on that panel and talk shop, talk movies. It was a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was great to hear you talk. And so you seem like you have really gotten around in terms of filmmaking around the country, in certain parts of the world. So I'd love for you to start at the beginning. Can you describe how you fell into the world of filmmaking and kind of what brought you to this point in your career? I know it might be a bit of a long answer, but feel free to answer however you feel comfortable.
Definitely, I think because film is for me, it's such a philosophical endeavor. And definitely growing up, some of my first memories about film, maybe when I was in kindergarten, somewhere around there, were about, who these actors were and how. I remember one time seeing a lamppost in a street in downtown of a movie poster, and Bruce Willis was there. And then I saw him in another movie and he died. And I thought, well, how does that happen? How does somebody die and then they're on a poster promoting another movie? And so that was my very first thought about, like, what is this thing? What is this medium, film? What is it? I have no idea what it is. And so that was a slow burn obsession of the movies and art. My brother, he's an animator. He's an artist. So he was always the artist in the family. So he drew pictures. I'd see like other kids in kindergarten draw stuff on the chalk, on the wall, on the chalkboard. And I'd say, like, my brother can do that. He's a better artist than these guys. Like, what's going on? So he was always my first window into the art world. And so it wasn't until junior high. I don't know if you guys used to rent movies at video stores.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
But I'd go with my dad. We rent like action movies, like Schwarzenegger, like Steven Seagal, like crap movies.
Make a weekend out of it.
Make a weekend. Yeah. This one shop, it was $7 for 7 days, 7 movies. That was their big
I remember that
promo. Yeah.
That's so great.
And it was like VHS off the walls. And so I'd obsess in the summertime and watch movies. Like in the summer, that'd be it. Just playing video games, going outside, hanging out with friends, and watching movies. Those were the obsessions. And that was kind of my growing up. Kind of the media around me was all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then so junior high, and then did you go to school for filmmaking?
No, did workshops, did courses, like just random community courses. I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, born there. It's my hometown. Shout out to the 204. So definitely it was doing workshops there. I did a college program in paramedics. And so from there, I had a post-secondary degree and I applied to Film Training Manitoba, which was a training program in Winnipeg. And that was in 2011. And I got on as a grip on a show. And
cool.
You could select which department you want to be in, whether it was first craft services or a production assistant. I had no idea what this stuff was. Mm-hmm. And I was like 20 years old. And I said, you know what? Let me just do the most laborious position, the position that is the most intense on the body, and that was grips. Mm-hmm. And so I said, let's do that. And so I worked the sets there in Winnipeg on a big professional set, taught in the Book of Pure Evil. It was for space, and I think they had 2 seasons of it, and then they did like an animation version of it for their like a movie version. And so it was fun. Met my first celebrity there, Jay from Jay and Silent Bob.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
yeah,
He
okay.
seems like
Jason
a nice
Mewes.
guy.
Jason Mewes,
Yeah.
yeah. So he was like the janitor, the stoner janitor
Right.
in the closet, like Leo from 70s Show. Like he was just there. Like he'd give like advice, like sagest advice to the lead guy in trouble. And so he was like my first like, whoa, I've seen this guy on
Yeah.
the Kevin Smith movies. And so that's where I started. And connected with filmmakers there and people that I'm still friends with to this day. And they send me their work, I send them my work, and we chit chat and communicate. But I started humble beginnings in Winnipeg,
Yeah.
in the Winnipeg scene.
And so you seem, from what I understand, it seems like you primarily specialize in ADing and directing.
Yeah.
How do you draw a line from that experience to where you're at now?
Like a grip is very different than an AD.
Yeah, in 2015, I moved to Vancouver, and my brother, he's an animator there, so I stayed with him, and he really encouraged me to just take my skills that I had in film and put it into the Vancouver scene. And this was 2015 Vancouver. This was when cable TV was still a thing, not with streaming now. And there would be, pilot season in the fall time, right? September, they'd have a bunch of shows for pilot season. So everybody's jumping on crews. All these green people are jumping on sets and you get your experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's for the springtime, for the mid-season shows. And then in the springtime, around this time, March, April, there'd be another slew of pilots for the summer, for the fall time. And so this was like a regular calendar rotation. So I got in right when that CW, Flash,
yeah.
Supergirl,
A lot of those.
Legends of Tomorrow, the Green Arrow, like that whole thing, when that was like the big boom. So yeah, I got in just like in the swing of that. And I kind of came in wanting to be a script supervisor. That was like the one department I was gunning for. And because I was working my way towards there, connected with the right people. And because I was efficient with the walkie-talkie, because I'd done it in my previous job, I was always talking on the radio, like, okay, this is happening, this, da-da-da, we'll lock it up here, copy. And so I got tapped one day to be an assistant director and be a TAD, as they call it in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
Here in the East, it's something... I don't even think they have it. It's like a fourth AD or something. And so you're the trainee assistant.
Yeah. Okay.
And so you're just running cast to set and standing by the monitors with the director, confirming things. Or if you're with the DP, you're confirming things for the director across the walkie-talkie. So I did that effectively because I was already amateur director in Winnipeg. I was already making my own films, already doing my own stuff, already been on set. And so it kind of snowballed from there. After that, other people heard, "Hey, you're an assistant director on that show. Do you want to do it on this one?" Da da da. I said, "Okay, let's go." And just things kind of snowballed from there, and stayed, an assistant director. I still am, continue to this day. I love it. Mm-hmm. But I love directing as well, because that's another captain of the ship. First AD, that's always the position that I love to perform. Just because there is a logistical, there is a performative art to it.
Yeah.
Because you're the sort of the voice of the director. The director's the voice to the actors, but you're the voice sort of to the crew and keeping traffic flowing, keeping the cameras rolling. And so there is definitely a performative art to it. One of my favorite first assistant directors in Vancouver, he was, before he became in his 20s and early 30s, he was an actor. And so for him, acting helped him project and give like those big speeches to the rooms. And so I definitely, you pick up on things from people over time. And so he was sort of somebody that I picked up a couple lines here and there. One of my favorite lines from my first AD is my guy, Michael Bishop in BC. He'll say on the walkie, he'll be like, "Hey," someone will be like, "I'm not sure what we're what we got to do here. Da, da, da. He's like, all right, pick up the slack, bud. We're making a multi-million-dollar picture here. And it's like a Hallmark, whatever.
Yeah. That's fun.
Yeah. I mean, AD is definitely like, it seems like a very engaging role to me that you're always, on your feet bouncing around.
Yeah, you're on your feet. You're looking for problems, right? You're looking for safety issues. That's sort of the number one mindset, is just checking to make sure there's no cables loose. If there's things kind of hanging, if a grip has something in the way, if electrics have cable and there's no mat over top of it, just looking for things, looking for red flags. And definitely when I'm in that flow state, it's like you can even see the work trucks from where you are on set and seeing like, wait a minute, something's not right there. You send, your teammate to go find out and investigate what's going on, and they'll be happy to get off set and find out what's happening. But you're sort of just keeping the levees, secured. So there's there's nothing breaking, so that the director now has to interject, or the actor, or or someone is sort of having their mind messed with because of disruptions on set. So you try and be an advocate as best as you can for people, for crew.
Definitely. And so what keeps you busy mainly these days? Do you find yourself do you do ADing enough to be like a day job, or do you find yourself mostly ADing, mostly directing?
No, ADing. Yeah, that's been my regular rotation. And then I, push myself out there for more directing gigs. I myself, I'm a creative, so I have, visions of things that I want to put out there, and projects I want to do, big projects, small projects. And so definitely just finding the right people to collaborate with and to bring that directing dream to the forefront. I've been able to do an indie feature in Vancouver. I was able to, go to my hometown and jump in with a fellow filmmaker, Karen Tusa, and direct one of her films for her company. Small, short film, but, it's gotten its festival run, and it's family friendly. And I think as I get older, I kind of lean more in that direction and kind of get away from when you're in your early 20s and you just want to do that scene in Taxi Driver, or that scene in Goodfellas.
It's brutal, provocative.
Yeah. It's like, how many times can I swear at the camera and this and that? And after a while, you're like, you know what? Maybe I'll do something that my nephew can watch. Maybe I'll do something that my niece can sit down and enjoy, and or my mom can enjoy. And so that's kind of where my interests are in directing right now. It's just doing more family friendly projects.
Well, it's a really cool perspective. Now, when it comes to being a creative, I always want to know, what inspires certain people towards this or that. So I asked you this question in advance. Can you name 3 films that describe your tastes in movies, whether it's the movies that you like to watch or the kind of movies that you like to make? Obviously, it seems that's changed over time.
Yeah. You know what? I have to bring it back to that summer period in junior high when I was watching a lot of films. And I think up until that point, I must have been maybe 12 or something?
Yeah, something like that.
I watched The French Connection with Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
And that film blew my mind. It was the guerrilla style of it. It was, handheld French New Wave. And I just never saw a film shot like that before. Everything else prior felt so studio, and it's like, you're thinking about wow, it's a big budget production. And then here's this film where I've seen Gene Hackman in modern movies in the 90s and this and that. And I see him on the street grabbing people and throwing them against the wall, and he's chasing a train, and he's getting sniped at. And it just felt so guerrilla and so documentary. It's so real life. And so that film was the moment that there was a light bulb. And I said, I could do this. Yeah. I could just grab a camera and just go on the street and film. And so that was sort of I held that in. And one day I said, you know what? I'm going to go explore this and see what that is. And maybe I'll get there. Maybe I won't. But I'm just going to remember this feeling of just sitting, watching on a Saturday afternoon, Gene Hackman under the train, chasing the train under the train tracks, and just like it just blew my mind. So that's definitely a style that I carry with me today. Try and find that. I was cutting up a reel of just some work that I've done. And the one thing that I guess I have a trademark, if there was like an IMDb trademark, this is this person's trademark. For me, it's chase sequences. And I was able to,
nice.
and I was able to, I have like 8 different films with like chase sequences in there. And I actually recreated the train versus the car in Vancouver. I recreated that and used the French Connection like frames. And when I was working with the team, I'm like, this is how we're going to shoot it. We're going to shoot it like this. And they're like, well, what's the reference? It's the French Connection.
A nice homage.
Yeah.
Full circle moment, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like what made you want to get into filmmaking in a way, and then you get to do it.
Yeah.
It's great.
It was one of my favorite times being a creative filmmaker and a director because, true to form in the French style, it was improv. It was very, okay, we have the camera, we have real people, and we're going to film. And I had my one friend, Kimmy Alexander from Winnipeg, living in Vancouver at the time, and she's an actor, and I got her to play a thief, and she stole this guy's phone, and the guy tracks her down at a train station, and then she's selling the phone to people coming off the train. And I'm like, Kimmy, like, I didn't write any lines. I said, Kimmy, you're just going to sell this phone to people. She's like, what? I can talk to people? Like, there's no script. Like, I thought this was like, we're in film. We have to talk like with dialogue. And I'm like, nope. I just want you to talk to people and sell this phone. Sell me this pen. Sell me this phone. And so she did. And that was sort of the improv approach to that.
Did it go over well?
Oh, yeah. I mean, people kept to their own, and we had an actor there, Drew Henderson, who's like on Hallmarks now, and back then he looked like a hippie, and so he was the guy that buying the phone, and I didn't have any lines for him, and we just kind of put that piece together and shot it, and it's great, great little fun action piece.
Yeah.
It's so wonderful having that light bulb moment of like seeing a movie and being like, I could do this, whether it's like, I've been working in video production for a while, but I still had that big mental block of feeling like I couldn't make a feature. And when we watched Slacker, that was such a simple movie. I don't know if you've seen it, Richard Linklater movie. Yeah. It was such a simple movie. It was such a simple concept. Literally, I came off of that watching that movie, and I was like, I could do that.
Yeah.
And that was a big
people
inspiration
talking.
on
different lives of people.
The simplicity of Coffee and
camera
Cocktails.
shows,
Little
meanings
vignettes.
of people's lives.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So French Connection, and then what's your number 2 film when it comes to movies that describe your tastes?
You know what? This one was tough because it's kind of a split, but again, in that junior high period, I peaked in junior high, basically. But in that period, I watched, and I'm a kid of the 70s. I love films from the 70s. That's like, if you're talking baseline style, and I have to study a film that I'm directing, I'll go to the 70s, like the first thing. But Network would be my number 2 with Sidney Lamont, director, William Holden, Peter Finch, Faye Dunaway, Robert Duvall, about the televangelist who's on the news, and he's depicting the hypocrisies of our times, and he's a huge hit for the ratings, and then he's put on this network to basically be like CNN, or like he's spreading the truths of like a Bill Maher today, and so he becomes this huge hit, but now he's speaking too much truth, and the network wants to shut him down.
Okay.
And came out the same year as Rocky. Rocky won Best Picture that year.
Right.
Taxi Driver, 1976.
That's a big year for cinema.
Huge. The centennial of the United States. Like their big, what is it? Like it'd be like their 200-year anniversary of the country's founding.
Right.
Yeah. So it was a big year for sure. But I think the main thing from that film, not only is the writing so tight, but when I watched it in junior high, and there's some great monologues there. It's like theater, it's Shakespeare, it's modern. It reminded me, and this was sort of like the split answer to that question, because I always wanted to make films that speak some level of truth, some level of a depiction of reality in whatever timeline or event that we're in. And a film that I watched with my dad when it came out was The Matrix. When that came out in March, in the spring of March of 99. And my dad took me to movies all the time, and R-rated movies. I think I was an R-rated movie and I was like 10 and we watched it. And I just took it as an action film, right? I didn't think much of it. I'm 10. I'm like, wow, that was so cool. Neo, slow motion, like the agents, cool. Like the bullet effects. And my dad, we were driving home, and he's like, my middle name's Omar. So he's like, Omar, raise up your hand. I'm like, okay. And he's like, everything around you is a lie. Everything around you is an illusion. All this world is made up of trillions of molecules and atoms and ions slapped together to create this image. It's false. It's not real. And I was like, what? I'm like, this is sage's man telling me these things. And I just shut up. I just kept quiet. And I took that information and I am like, okay, maybe things are an illusion. Maybe things aren't real. And so that began my questions further into, well, how did he get that from that film? And I'm like trying to figure it out over
Diving
the years.
A little bit deeper.
Yeah. And it wasn't until in my 20s, like my early 20s, I came back to it and I was like, damn, I see this movie in a completely different way entirely. And definitely I think that level of reality of speaking of stripping away the masquerade of what life is. The Buddhists, they use samsara, right? The four sufferings of birth, aging, sickness, death. And this is the reason why we suffer, because we continue to fall into these patterns. And so it's, okay, well, how do I put that into a film? How do I describe that into a movie? And so I'm always looking for ways to kind of blend that into the dialogue. I fall back onto action a lot, and I'm really fun at doing dumb comedies. I love dumb, 90s kind of style comedies. And so I've done my latest one is The Dog Napper. And it's, as the title says, guy steals dog. I mean, it's simple premise, but, again, and I have a chase in there. Styled after my French Connection 70s chases, bicycle versus a uni wheel. So, so that's
neat.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's the big on the canal too, on the Ottawa, on the what do you call it, the Rideau Canal?
Rideau Canal.
Rideau Canal.
Yeah,
love that thing. Love
there,
that place. Yeah. So that was shot a big chase on that in the summertime.
That's amazing. That's a good place for a chase.
Super cool.
Oh
very
yeah,
cinematic.
Yeah, drones and everything
Amazing. It's really interesting because you have such a creative vision for all these action sequences and stuff, but AD is a lot more of an analytical job, scheduling, making sure things are secure, and sometimes you can be a punching bag, you have to be the bad cop. And so I think it's so interesting to see how that differs from how you play as a director. As an AD, you kind of have to come back and say oh, we shouldn't do this because of reasons, we shouldn't do this action sequence because, we'll be behind on schedule. Whereas in directing, you're maybe, more open to those ideas. How did you, how does that correlate to your job as a director? Are you more I have to make my day, or are you more open to doing creative chances and stuff?
It's a fine line, because I find that for me it's a very 9 to 5 kind of job. I'm trying to get in, get out, be efficient with the time, not waste people's time. So because I am an AD and I read the schedule and I look for problems as a director, I do my own schedule, so I'm looking for problems. And so it helps actually shape the creative play that I can do on set. So when I'm setting up the geography, if I have a location locked in prep and I show up and I can block the scene, And so I'm blocking, studying. Well, that's not working with the script. Let's cut that. Well, I'm going to need another part. I'm going to need a part 1 here and a part 2 here around the block because it's not in the script, but I need it to tie together this creative element here between the two. So, because I do break down paperwork, then I can kind of get to the finer details quicker and just resolve those problems so that when we're on set, I'm going quick. I'm going fast, efficient, editor-in-chief. So I'm sort of like seeing the reels and I'm saying, okay, yeah, we got that piece. And I think that's going to work for the editor. Just get this little moment and we'll insert that at this place here. Okay, good. Let's go. I don't like to hold on to, 3 takes max and move on. And, and then working with the team around me to kind of, if I have a Viz effects person on set, well, is that going to work for, do I need a plate shot here? Am I going to need a plate shot there? Can we post in something here afterwards? So just kind of working with the team to sort of get the edit as we're editing on the fly and sort of figuring that out.
Very smart.
Yeah. And but definitely like the paperwork part of it. Paperwork. People think it's all creative and it's like visual and it's this and that. But there's so much prep that goes into it, right?
Yeah, to make it efficient, to you only have so much money, especially on lower budget stuff. So you only have a budget scheduled out for 10 days, so you can't go beyond that. So you have to make sure that it's filmed in 10 days. And a lot of creatives like to mess around, so you have to rein them in.
Yeah. And again, I'm just lucky that I've kind of grinded up the ladder and sort of been at the bottom of the totem pole. They don't make it easy for Latinos or, for, BIPOC folk, whatever you want to call us.
Absolutely.
So it's always a grind up. And so definitely I've had to go through the rankings and go through these different departments to really know what I can do and what I can't do. And that's not to say that when I'm on set, all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? I didn't think of this, but I need a car. I need this car in right now.
You have to be lenient.
Yeah. So there's definitely that room for play as well, but you can get there when you've done the homework.
Yeah.
And once you've done the homework, then you can find room to be creative as well. And get what you need to make this look beautiful.
Right. If you're more efficient in your shooting, then maybe you have more room to play around.
Yeah.
Like if you wrap early, it's like, okay, well, why don't we get that extra shot? Because we have the time.
Yeah.
Whereas if you were not efficient, then you wouldn't have time to get the stuff you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just about maximizing that time, and I think that prep work, as much as you can get done. When I'm an assistant director and I'm working with Stevenson Passive, my co-director, my creative partner, I'm on his ass about like the schedule.
Yeah,
and
you
I'm
have
like,
to be.
Because I'll break it down and then I'm going through the numbers and I'm saying, Steven, okay, so we have an hour here, we have this location there. What's your shot list like? What are you going to do? Are you going to go, I have my philosophy on the lenses, and are you going to follow, or are you going to go different?
Sure. Yeah.
So what do you think about it? Are you going to go on rails here and slide in? What do you think? We'll go to location, investigate more. So I think the more you talk about it, the more you kind of figure it out. I'll be in the parking lot somewhere, if I'm or a location somewhere, if it's outdoors, and I'll just be talking to myself, just walking up and down the street, like moving the camera, like standing there studying. Okay, that works I'll make notes on the schedule. So definitely all that homework, I think it helps get you closer to the vision. And it's not going to be perfect. Right? There's always maybe like a weather element that gets in the way, or, someone is late, or the gear's not working, or something always f***s up.
For sure.
And, but I think if you can have that homework done, then maybe that blow is just less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least, having the experience of having dealt with it so many times in so many other roles, being able to pivot quickly and to problem solve. I'm sure that's one of the most fun aspects of it, is to be able to say like, hey, there was a problem here and we solved it, and I was able to save the day for shooting and make the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, just circling back to the topic of working your way up the ladder of professional sets and stuff, can you talk a little bit about the different variety of sets that you've worked on? Because you've obviously mentioned that you get enough work as an AD to do it basically as a day job for a living. But a lot of the people that we've talked to on the podcast and people that I've connected with in the film industry have a different day job, and then they do filmmaking on the side. So do you work strictly on professional sets? Have you worked on low budget, no budget sets? And if so, what are some of the differences that you see between those different set environments?
Yeah, it's the ebb and flow of the industry. It changes hands as the industry kind of comes in and out of its own social awareness of what's going on around it. So definitely, like, I know there was a period during the strikes, for example, last year I was in Vancouver and there was nothing going on.
Yeah.
It was like dry. And I just come off, I think it was Bones of Crows. And so that was like a indigenous show on CBC, on APTN. Marie Clements, she's the producer, creator, director on it. Like beautiful, like Canadian, the horrors of the Confederation, and this indigenous family that's sort of taken through the just trials of sufferings throughout the centuries. So I just come off that, and the strikes were there were murmurs about strikes, writer strikes happening. Oh man. And because Vancouver is such a labor town and it gets a lot of its industry from Los Angeles,
Definitely.
the Green Light Gang out east here, there's just a lot of crew, a lot of just labor technicians. And so things just stopped happening. And because all these big executives they were withholding from pulling any triggers. And so, now you're like, on Facebook, you're looking at ads, you're seeing like what's on the indie scene, what's going on. And I found one that was a great like Bollywood production coming in from India, from Mumbai. And so I answered that, and it was like, not a union thing, a non-union thing, and great crew, and they liked my experience. And so I jumped in with them, and just helping wrangle cast and some paperwork stuff, but it wasn't intense. Their team had taken care of all the intense stuff that I normally would take on, and so I was just there kind of as a support. And but definitely like things like that, and it was you meet some great people from foreign countries that are coming in, and they become friends of yours now. My buddy Ashish, in Toronto, he's there with his wife now. They just got their PR here. And so, keep in touch with people like that. And because you just never know. There's so many people coming in from all over the world making movies. And especially in Canada, too. It's such a melting pot of people and different cultures. And everyone's trying to tell their story. So you just jump in their train and you ride with them for a bit. And you see how things go. And, and then on to the next. So it's been fun in that way for me. I guess now lately in my life, I'm kind of more of a vagabond artist.
Sure.
I kind of redirected my destiny out east here. When that strike period was going on in the West, I took advantage of that and sublet my place and took off. And, I've worked in Winnipeg in my hometown, and, so I'd done shows there, indies and commercial work there. And again, I had an opportunity to work on a show in Windsor, of all places. I mean, Windsor, what's going on there? Bordering Detroit. And it was rough, on the streets. You're hanging out after work with the director and the first AD, and people are trying to rough you up.
Oh my goodness.
And and it's just like, it's just weird that, the different places you get into sometimes. And and then from there, coming out here, taking a pit stop in Toronto. I'm exploring Ontario. It's huge.
It's very huge.
It's huge. You got North Bay, Sault Ste. Marie, Sudbury. Like, they got things going on up there. I'm trying to track my way to get up there trying to crack my way in there at some point. Toronto, Hamilton. There was something going on in Windsor. I think maybe that one show, and it's just a dust bowl there right now. I have no idea. But and then Ottawa here. So there's things like, across the country. There's pockets of filmmakers everywhere.
Definitely.
And that's what I've realized when I was doing my cross country trek. I was like, wow. I'm like, I know there's filmmakers everywhere because, it's just there's artists all over the place. You'll find someone someplace. And, luckily I'm in the Directors Guild, so I'm able to pop into their offices and see what's going on and kind of work my way. All right, here's the commercial side. Let me see what's going on in the indie side, because that's where you'll meet, a lot of the grassroots people and the folks doing events at Mayfair or Kino events and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then now they got a grant for a project, and and you're working with them on something. So you just never know where
That's
it comes
true.
from. So and that's what makes it fun. It makes it kind of unstable as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's the life we've chosen as creatives is,
Yeah.
if you want to work in the industry, it's just you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and when I left college, because I did like paramedics, and I'm like, that was always my plan B. If this film stuff failed, and I'm done, and I'm toast, then it's like, you know what? I'll just do medicine.
Sure.
I'll just be in the
Interesting.
ambulance. I love hospitals. It gives me a rush. Some people hate it, right? And so I'd have to go back and stomach it again, because I don't think I can stomach blood and all these things anymore. But yeah.
Do you think there's any specific challenges or like what are the specific differences of working on a really small indie set versus a much larger scale set?
I think with the larger sets, like I remember when I was on Supergirl, there was we'd be in this huge studio, and where it's like a warehouse, and you have like the openings for the trucks, for the work trucks to load their gear, sort of like not freight lifts, but they were like platforms that they used to offload goods back in the old days. And so it's like a row of work trucks like that, and everybody has a position. It's like you're the best boy in the truck, and the lead grip is sort of the in between or whoever, and you got the key grip on set, and so like everyone plays a role. You got the carpenter who's the lead guy, but then this other person just deals with the flywall only, and this other person just deals with the ceiling, and so it's like everyone has their position to play, and nobody ever gets out of it. And if you try and involve yourself in what they do, they're like, whoa, hold on. You're breaking union rules here. If I'm an AD on set and there's no stand-in, and I decide to stand in for the cameras, whoa, you're taking a stand-in's job. Like, just wait, union rules. So there's always that at play, I think, on the bigger shows, and then on the indies, like everyone's doing everyone's job. Everyone's sort of folding into each other and doing and picking up the slack. And you got an art director who's a production designer, who's a graphic designer, and you got the first AD who's doing the call sheet, or you got props who's also set deck, who's so there's a lot more involvement with the crews in that way. But I also find having a conversation about the creative work as well, what you're filming, how we're going to get this done. It's more intimate on the smaller sets. It's more like you're really just playing and having fun and figuring out the puzzle piece to make this thing work. On this latest short, The Dog Napper, we had Jonah. I don't know if you guys, I can't pronounce his last name, but he built a bike rig, and it was like under-cranked camera, and we built it on the backseat of a bike, and we cycled on the canal with that thing. But we had a day of prep just to figure it out, and to see how it would work. And so that type of like engineering was such a fun thing to do, because now you're trying to figure out, well, how do I get this shot? I kind of laid out the template. Okay, this is the reference. Here's what I'm looking for. And so, the team comes together and they put the pieces together, and all right, can we do this? And then can we turn it so we get a side profile for a shot? Oh yeah, we can spin it around. And so, it's like that kind of fun engineering. You take the time out, you're building Legos. Right.
Yeah.
You're just like, you're putting your engineering brain together. I'll throw a question out there to somebody. They take their time. They get back to me. Yeah, try this, watch this video on it. So it's that kind of play on the indies. It's a lot of fun.
You
Yeah.
could probably take a little bit more risks, like do something that's maybe not like the smartest, like more like a jerry-rigged kind of thing, whereas on a bigger set, that's probably like a no-go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You have to look through the handbook. You
Yeah.
got to see what nut and bolt goes with which. It's it's a lot of paperwork, or
Yeah.
bureaucracy, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of that, but I mean, for good reason, safety and stuff. So there's pros and cons.
Certainly. Now, pivoting around back to the topic of directing, what approach do you take to directing a set? Do you have a certain like mantra or set of values when it comes to directing a set, running a set?
I like to keep things as odd as it sounds. I like to keep things calm. I like to keep things, jazzy and kind of breezy. And, I at the top of the day, we'll have a safety meeting and I'll explain the course of the day. And so I like to get involved right away as sort of like a first AD would get involved. And I get in trouble from my first ADs because they're like, well, you're taking my job. And I'm like, I'm sorry. It's just like, this is just how I do it.
Sure.
I apologize. And definitely kind of setting that sort of tone of, having a safe space to say what you say, be who you are. Let's work together. Don't be afraid to come and ask me questions because I'll be focused on, what the first setup is or talking to an actor, but feel free to have that conversation with me. And, so, it's been good in that way. I'm not like, I've heard stories of, directors, I don't know, grabbing like Starbucks cups with like their director name on the cup and like, taking photos and enjoying the title of director. And I noticed that there's a lot of people, they like the title of things, but when it comes to the work and talking to the crew and keeping track of time and making sure that lunch is coming or this and that, you get your ADs, whoever, to kind of keep you updated or at least you give them the information. You just want to make it comfortable for the crew that they're taking their time out of their day to be there with you. And they don't have to be there. They probably love the art game as much as you love it. And but definitely just making crew comfortable and just making sure that their views and their opinions are respected and that they're heard and that open communication is there.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like some people don't realize that there's a lot more to being a director than just having a strong vision for the production.
Yeah. I always treat it like it's a pirate ship. Film is you got the director who's the captain of the ship and he's steering the wheel, and you got your different ists, your physicists, your biologists, your grips, your carpenters, your lighting tech, your camera, all walks of life are on this ship. And you got your map, the script, and you're going towards a destination. And you don't know if you're going to get there or not. Things could crash and burn. Yeah. You could hit a wall. You could hit something completely devastates this entire ship, this journey. And when you get there, you get to the booty and you're like, okay, we got here. Here's the treasure. We made a movie. This is it. And so it's that journey. I think that's the fun part. It's daunting. It's like, gives you anxiety and it gives you an ulcer, but I think having that steady hand and a clear vision and knowing that at the end of the day, and maybe I'm an optimist, but you're just hoping that people are there because they want to be there. Absolutely. And that you're creating that environment for them to be there and make it fun and make it challenging too. But definitely for me, it's like throwing a party, it's like throwing like a birthday party or something. You just want to make sure everyone's feeling good, everyone's feeling happy, and you're the host of honors, just making sure that, hey, you're here for me, for this project, for us, and we're gonna make something great, and it's a celebration. So
that's great. Yeah, we were literally having this conversation with Tom off mic a mere hour ago. Andrew was saying like, film is like a party.
Yeah. It's like planning a party. Like everybody's got their different departments. that they have to worry about. You know, you're taking care of cups, you're taking care of decorations, but we all got to show up at the same time. You know,
Yeah.
if it's a surprise party, then this part of the crew has to show up before this part of the crew comes. Like the
Yeah.
actors come at
Yeah.
this point, and at that point we got to be ready to go. You know, and that's part of the fun of it.
Yeah.
For me, is like
Yeah.
planning a big party and like having fun while on set.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
Well, it's the same as like on a film set. If someone drops the ball, it can affect the whole thing. You know,
Yeah.
if someone forgets to bring snacks or alcohol, it could like really change the whole vibe of the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if
So-
someone has a bad attitude,
Yeah.
you know, it can really spread like a
Absolutely.
plague.
Yeah. Definitely.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's I was working on a short years ago, and there was it's like everyone was great on the crew, everyone's fine, and then I'd get like the producer being like, well, everybody's not fine, and everyone's like freaking out, and I'm like, but hold on, I'm with the crew, like I'm with everybody on the set, I don't hear anything from anybody. Well, no, but I'm hearing it. And I'm like, because you're saying it. You're the
Yeah.
one talking about how you're having a shit time, or you're worried about the timing and this and that. It's you, and that's your energy that you're bringing to other
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
So don't tell me that it's me and what we're doing, because we're here making the thing so that you can go and present it and go to a festival and whatever.
Mhm.
So it's yeah, I guess just some people don't realize the energy that they're putting out there, and it affects people, right? Like there's
Absolutely.
a psychology to it, and I think that's the big thing about a film set. It's, you know, I always say it's 40% paperwork and 60% psychology. That number
Definitely.
fluctuates, but I mean, you're dealing with people's personalities, and that's the biggest obstacle I find.
Mm.
It's just dealing with other people and sort of how to kind of maneuver with their ebbs and flows in life and what they're going through, and having that conversation with them, and you know, when to pull the trigger and when not to, and you know, so I think
Mhm.
that kind of has a factor as well. And you just hope that people show up and they're professional and this and that, but that's not always the case, right? So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's true.
Mhm.
Yeah, in my own experience, it feels kind of like being a parent. Like some
Mm.
people respond really well to tough love, and other people need more like gentle parenting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they need to be told, like, you have to show up at this time, otherwise they're not gonna do it. And other people maybe like it's okay, like you need this or whatever.
Well, you know, hence
Yeah.
my pen name Virgo. I was told one time in an office, in a production office, the production coordinator, she's like, "Oh, Virgo, you're back." She's like, "Yeah, I wish all the ADs were Virgos, because you guys are so good with paperwork and organizing and this and that." And I'm like, yeah, I love it. For me, that's what I love. And I think that maybe comes with that the sign of the maiden, you know, the caretaker, people pleaser.
Mhm.
Not necessarily people pleasing, but just taking care, making sure that they're taken
Yeah.
care of.
For sure.
And I definitely hold that for sure, like on set. That's like a personality trait that I have on set.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're not only a director, you're not only an AD, but you're also an author.
Yes.
Can you tell me a bit about your work as a novelist and how you balance and connect that to your film work?
So I got here Saturn's Gate. This is my sophomore novel.
There we go.
And you know, it's I think the writing aspect of things, like when I started writing out of high school into college, it was all poetry. Like I going to open mics, doing like raps on stage to a beat, and you know, but it was always poetry, rhyming, and that eventually developed into short stories, that went into short film scripts, that went into feature film scripts, and I wanted to challenge myself with writing a novel.
Yeah.
And this was like almost 10 years ago, maybe more than that. And so I put pen to paper and just challenged myself. I want to get away from the script aspect of writing like three splashes of character and like 2 lines and moving on. And I wanted to create like a world in the writing. And so definitely, you know, I'm a big fan of Latin literature, big fan of like Eastern philosophy, big fan of history in general. And so, and I think some of the greatest films are historical films. So I that was sort of another aspect. Like if I want to be a great filmmaker, I'm probably going to want to read a lot and read into history
That's a
and
good perspective.
and see like what's a cool story that I could tell in the future sometime. And so that kind of helped me spur on the inspiration to create stories. I was always a writer, but definitely like putting a novel together with themes. This one is obviously there's the Colosseum in the background, back to the Colosseum. And yeah, it was a lot of my fascination with ancient philosophers from ancient Rome and Greece, and I took a lot of narrative from Martial and Juvenal, who were Latin poets and historians. And so one of them in particular, he wrote about the opening of the Roman Colosseum. And so I took stories from there, like little sketches of the animals that they would parade around in the mornings, and sort of like a circus. And so that would be for the morning time. And one time there was a mother bear that ran into the bleachers and started attacking the folks, and this poet in the stands is like writing this down. And so I was like fascinated with like the scheduling of it, and like, well, okay, like he's saying that in the morning they had animals parading. And so I wrote a character in there, Magnus, who's a beast tamer from Spain. And so he's there at the Colosseum at the opening, and that's his job. He's a slave. He's a jailed performer. I mean, all these gladiators were jailed performers. And so he's there taming the animals in the morning. Animals that the Roman army would take from Africa. They would take from Asia. They already had interactions with India. I mean, the world was already a globalized time in like 100 AD when the story takes place. And so definitely, and at noon hour, there was the crucifixions. And so they would reenact Greek tragedies and make a spin on it. So it'd be like Prometheus, who soared to the heights of the sun and fell, or it was a vulture that would peck at him at the corpse of the body. And so in the variant in the Colosseum, they would have someone strapped to a makeshift crucifix, and they would have a bear eat him to death.
Oh my goodness!
That was like their variation of it. And so they would have like these different things. They have jesters and jugglers and magicians at noon hour, like a halftime show today at a sports stadium at like a football game. And then in the evening time, there was the main event, the gladiators. And in that, I love UFC. So it was like, I see it now. Like I see it today with boxing, with UFC, with this blood sport. And so I really wanted to tailor something that kind of ran these themes from ancient past that actually they parallel modern times, and things haven't really shifted that much. We have a technology and all these things now, but a lot of the kind of baseline personalities, these are high school kids that go back in time. So they have to deal with their love triangles, their peer bullying, and those problems are in the future in high school are affecting them in the past. And so they're dealing with that, and
that's cool.
So it's a lot of fun and a lot of research. And
definitely.
Yeah. And I went to Italy 2 years ago. I went to the Colosseum to study the Colosseum.
Amazing.
And I went like asking questions, going to the basement where they would have the backstage, and where they would have someone like me, like an assistant director, a production assistant, who's like wrangling the gladiators and the animals backstage, and they're waiting. Okay, all right, it's time to go. And then they lift them up in the elevator, and you got slaves pulling rope to get the elevators going up. And so one of the
Real
characters,
production.
It's a huge production. And so the lead character, he's the Felix, and his sister Felicia. Felix is he works the backstage. He's underground. He's a slave working underground, but he kind of likes what he does. He's like, in high school I was doing theater. This is like, it's like theater. And then his sister is a boxer, and she knows like, martial arts from the future, and with jujitsu and judo, and she pulls that off in the games, and she's like super famous. And so they're trying to get back in time. Obviously, I think for me, a guilty pleasure movie is Back to the Future.
Oh, that's one of our faves, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Do you like the first one, the second one, the third? Which one's your favorite?
All three.
The first for me.
Is it the first? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the first because they spent like 7 years making it, whereas the next two were maybe a little bit rushed. But
Yeah. I love the second one.
yeah, second one's great too.
It's such a good like 3-act structure
Mm-hmm.
from the future, the present, and the past.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, cool. And it doesn't make any sense because like obviously in the beginning, if Biff is able to see Marty and Doc like go into the future, then that version of
Very
Biff
paradoxical.
would have been in that timeline that those guys went into. So it's like it would have crashed the whole timeline. But I love it. You know,
Yeah.
goofs aside, for me, like that one, that's my favorite one.
Mm-hmm. I really love the parts, especially from a cinematic perspective, of revisiting the film before.
Oh yeah,
That's just so cool.
which I like. Endgame took that whole plot device and you know put it back in there. We were talking earlier about like video games, and you guys asked about like my favorite video game, and I said Chrono Trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, like when I would write stories as a kid, it was always based on time travel, and it was always based on that Chrono Trigger event. And definitely like this is sort of it has that in there. And the characters as well are sort of subdivided into like Dungeons and Dragons, job classes. You know, you got a thief, you got a ninja, you got a knight, you got a squire. So, you know, that kind of video game mindset that I have. I love video games as a kid growing up. Now I don't have time to really play it. I have my Switch, and you know, I'm still playing like PS2 games and like retro
why
Of
not?
course.
RPGs from the Super Nintendo, PlayStation era. So, like all those games, I'm always trying to describe that world. Like, what is that world? Like, let me put it pen to paper. Some of my favorite books growing up were like books based on video games, even like the instruction manual of video game.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And in this one too, like I even have like the opening of it sort of opens with like a character bio and their traits.
Oh,
and,
yes.
you know,
Very much like an instruction
manual
Yeah.
from back in the day.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's this is the latest, and it was a fun book to write. Very, just the pen just moved efficiently with it, and some of the I have some bolded words in there that are Latin words, so that when you're reading, you get like you know, a paragraph of something, and it goes into like he makes an efficient haranari, which is an arena slave, or the gladiatorium, the oath of the gladiators. So again, being in Italy and getting books from there, able to pick up on some of the Latin and just weave it into the narrative. So that was another fun thing to do, to put that together.
Yeah, it seems like it was a really fun book to write. And I mean, writing and playing with time travel is so freeing because you're literally taking down the bounds of reality.
Oh yeah,
What you can do in real, you know, in realistic stories.
Yeah.
Breaking down those walls and being able to do whatever you want.
Oh,
you know?
I think because Saturn's gate, like this is, you know, Saturn in Roman mythology was the god of time, right? The Greeks was Chronos, Chrono Trigger, hence Chrono Trigger.
Yes.
And so it was the sort of entering a new cycle, or the death of a cycle, a death of an age. You know, Chronos being this god who ate his kids, and this was to signify eating, like entering a new time era. And so definitely this is sort of the time travel device that these characters go into. And so you can kind of bend the rules for sure. And I would say like the last couple chapters is you see that there's knowledge of the future. So what is being done to kind of, you know, affect that past? And so there's some fun highlights in there at the end that make it enjoyable.
That's exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is there a hope to translate it to screen for you, maybe to direct an adaptation?
Listen, James Cameron, if you're out there,
Yeah.
take it over, baby. Like, it's such there's so many good like set pieces, action set pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, like my mind works for movies, like it works like in that vision. So, definitely there's room for that adaptation for sure in the future. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, wrapping up here, is this available right now? Can people find your work? And if people want to purchase a copy, where can they do that? And where can they find some of your film work?
Yeah, I got it's on Amazon right now, along with my first book, World War B. And Amazon, Saturn's Gates. You can find it on my linked tree, Velasquez Works, and or Acid Jazz Virgo. You can find the links there. Our my work is on Vimeo, TCKENT, and but most of my work it's linked on Linktree. So if you just Linktree Velasquez Works, and you'll find a lot of my my work from Winnipeg, Vancouver, shot 2 shorts in Japan, and now the East Coast here in Ottawa. So and hoping to expand more.
Amazing. I mean, we could easily just sit here for another hour and talk to you.
Just a time travel alone,
Yeah. I mean, I just want to thank you so much for coming out and recording with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I hope to have more conversations with you off mic and pick your brain about filmmaking in Japan and writing and all that kind of stuff.
Italy,
so thank you.
Everything.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you, Andrew. It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Hannah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So nice chatting.
All right. And thank you, audience members, for joining us on this conversation, and look forward to throwing another episode at you next time. Take care.